Summer is here, and that means trips to the beach, days in the sun, and plenty of Carolina blue skies. It's also the busiest season for buying and selling homes, so it's the Sharp Mortgage team's favorite time of year. Are you thinking of buying a home this summer in our beautiful area of the Triad of North Carolina? Well, look no further than Highlands Mortgage, where exceptional service meets unwavering dedication. They understand that purchasing a home is more than just a transaction. It's a milestone. Their team ensures your experience is smooth, responsive, and genuinely caring from start to finish. So why buy a home this summer with them? Well, you get personalized customer service. They pride themselves on offering great customer service tailored to your unique needs. Their responsiveness is unmatched. They're always just a call or email away, ready to promptly address any questions or concerns. And of course, you'll get expert guidance. You can rely on their knowledge and over 20 years of experience to navigate the often complicated world of home buying with confidence and ease. Summer's the perfect time to find your dream home in Winston-Salem, Greensboro, or anywhere in the North Carolina Triad. Let the Sharp Mortgage team guide you every step of the way. With their caring and responsive mortgage team, make your home buying journey this summer memorable. Just call 336-575-9448 to get started. 336-575-9448.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, hope everyone is enjoying a good start to their summer and planning for all sorts of vacations and fun times, and hopefully you have budgeted appropriately for these vacations. And if you need more reminders about that, we have plenty of conversations in our archives in our financial podcast with Jennifer Johnson. She is our certified financial planner. She is with Three Magnolias Financial Advisors, a local business right here in Winston-Salem. Jennifer, I am very intrigued by the topic that we are going to discuss today because, and some of this ties into summer because we're talking about major purchases, right? And we've provided a lot of different tips of how to save money for big purchases, maybe avoiding going into debt with these purchases. But today it's about people that have made big purchases and maybe they suffer from a little bit of buyer's remorse or maybe a lot of bit of buyer's remorse. What else can you tell us in terms of the context of our conversation today?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is related to summer. I remember going to the beach, and our family, when I was growing up, we didn't go to the beach necessarily every summer like a lot of people do. It's kind of rare for us to actually do that. My family was like, we would go kind of out west. It was like these long car trips. And I was envious of like people that went to the beach every summer when I was young. But I remember going there and I don't know if you've seen this, but as you kind of get close to the beach, there seems to be like a lot of car lots. Have you noticed that as your head? And I thought, gosh, that just seems so odd to me to go to the beach and buy a car.
It's like car lot, putt course, all you can eat seafood restaurant.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And they like kind of cluster, right? So I remember, talking to my husband because as we got married, we started going to the beach more and then going with young kids. And, he described a lot of people, I guess, like, young guys, especially when he was in the Marines, would go to the beach and they'd buy a car, while they're there. And I think it is a little bit of like that euphoria, of when you're on vacation. It's the summertime, you're feeling good. And I think sometimes that can lend itself to an impulse buy. I don't know how you're feeling about that.
Yeah. I don't know. You just get kind of in a different mode. I can say I've never bought a car when I've been vacationing to the beach. I've spent money on a lot of other things, but it's like you go and you see people that bring their boats or their jet skis.
Oh, true.
And so you see people using all these things that they own, and this is part of what we're going to talk about today, or you're like, hey, this vacation home that we rented for a week, boy, wouldn't it be nice to own one of these for ourselves? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then you're checking out real estate before you know it. You can get deep in the weeds. Yeah. I think what what led us to our topic for today. And we're going to be talking about big ticket items. I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be big ticket as a relative thing, but purchases we've made that later people, regret, and just some maybe red flags to look out for, some ways to avoid that. What sparked my interest? So I'll read the Wall Street Journal basically every day while I'm at work. And I noticed this article back a few weeks ago titled, "What Was I Thinking? The Big Ticket Items People Regret."
Hmm.
And it just got me thinking about things, that folks buy. I think especially like you said, summer, impulse decisions that they then later regret. And I thought that'd be a good topic for us to dive into today.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily a conversation about how to save and budget for buying these big ticket items, but if you're planning on spending thousands of dollars, sometimes more on these things, the question that we want people to ask is, do you really need this item? Is this something you really should be spending all this money on? Because that's a huge, you've spent months, maybe even years saving this money,
Yeah.
and now you're about to use it for something. And so do you really, do you really want to, you better be sure if you're
Yeah.
going to then spend money that you've spent all this time saving up.
Yeah, and likewise, you hope they've saved it. I think a lot of times if people save it up, maybe they're a bit more cautious, to let that money go, more thoughtful about is it really going to add the value if you've saved for years for something. I think to me, maybe one of the more dangerous things is these big ticket items that you maybe have to borrow, right,
Mm,
to make that purchase. I mean, one of the couple of examples, and this article largely gave two or three real life examples of big ticket items that people purchased that they later regretted. Very honest and open to those folks, I think, to share. But like, for example, an RV, some of those RVs are like buying a house, right?
hmm.
Like another house on wheels. And I mean, I don't know the percentages, but I'd imagine a lot of that is purchased with borrowed money.
Yeah, yeah. There's not a lot of people with the tens of $1,000s of of disposable cash that they can use to spend on an RV. And so yeah, so that was one of the items. What are, and without going into too much detail, we'll link off to the story in case people want to
Sure.
read it on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Wall Street Journal. But what are the items that they found that most people, when they purchase these things, that they tend to be the things that people have buyer's remorse about than others?
Yeah, yeah. RVs were definitely on there. I think a lot perhaps to do with the maintenance and upkeep and maybe the reality of being trapped in an RV with folks. I haven't done that personally, so I can't really speak to that. We've never owned an RV or even rented one. But I'd imagine that's something you look at and you get really excited about these family memories you're going to make. I have taken really long car trips though with my family. And I know when you go into those trips, you have a vision in your mind of what that's going to be like. And I don't know if your family's like mine, but as you get into that, especially hours turns into days in a relatively small space. And I think when you
Hmm.
invest in the RV, you're generally investing in the RVs because you don't stop at hotels and things like that. So you're in that RV with some folks probably for an extended period of time. So I'd imagine it's a couple reasons. One being, does it may not live up to the vision you had for the memories, and then two, for different things I had read on this topic. A lot of the regret comes from the financial stress, right, of owning. So it's that initial purchase, if it's something like an RV. And I think that's something you want to think about if you're going to make an RV purchase. Another thing mentioned in there were the second homes. I think they're kind of related to me, like an RV and a second home are somewhat in the same category. It's that, can you afford that initial purchase? Is it what you envision? And then what are those upkeep costs? What's
Hmm.
the maintenance on
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, and that never stops. That
Yeah.
never stops. The upkeep, the maintenance, all the things that you deal with in your home, you're gonna have to deal with a second time. I mean, look, there are advantages. We're not telling people that they shouldn't invest in these things, especially if they have the means to do so. But
Sure.
this is really just telling folks about some of the things that people express buyer's remorse about. And then the last one seemed to be more items of luxury or status or
Yeah.
whether it's clothes or jewelry, things like that, right?
That's right. It looks like wristwatches maybe were more common in men. You can become a collector. It sounds like of high-end wristwatches. I don't know if you have any. You probably have no experience in that.
Not the high end wristwatches, no.
You collect like do you remember Swatch watches?
Yeah, yeah. I
That a
mean, look,
thing when you were
no,
younger? Or is that too?
yeah, yeah. I was the kid and the adult who wore very basic watches. I mean,
Yeah.
I look in terms of like what I wear. I will wear a pair of shoes until there are 17 holes in them and I can no
Yeah.
longer wear them anymore. I will wear clothes until I'll wear clothes even when they have holes in them. And
Right.
um, I,
Right.
I I own two pair of jeans. I do have an Apple Watch in terms of my watch, but
Sure.
that's more
Me too.
for functionality rather than the look of it. But
Sure.
I tend to use things until they are no longer functional before I purchase something else. So yeah, some of these I cannot relate to any of these that are in this story. I
Yeah.
I don't own expensive watches. I don't own a vacation home. I don't own an
Going
RV.
on an RV. Yeah.
I don't own fancy clothes. I will purchase fancy clothes if I have to dress up for an occasion.
Yeah.
I will get them at a department store, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, this kind of stuff. I was really trying to think about answers to this. Like what would I say in terms of a big purchase I've made where I immediately regret? And for me, like I'll have buyer's remorse over spending $200 on something and not
Yeah.
necessarily
Right. Right.
2000. So I think
Right.
what
I
I
don't
think
think
what
it
I've
has to be thousands for you to have regret, right?
yeah.
It could be a smaller, what we might consider a smaller ticket item. But as we've spoken before, with budgeting and things, as you mentioned early on, I mean, if you have enough of those,
Hmm.
becomes a habit, it definitely makes a difference. Do you mind sharing? Is there something that comes to mind, like, you've been like, oh man, I wish I hadn't really bought
Yeah.
that?
So what I tend to do is I can be an impulse buyer. So
Okay.
if I see a sale pop up, or
Mhm.
clearance item on something that I would find useful,
Yeah.
um, I will I will immediately be tempted to purchase it and say, "Ooh, I could absolutely use this."
Yeah. Sure. It's a
Um,
deal, right? Like
and
that's a bit of
and
a trap.
and and what I try to do though is I try to force myself to wait 3 to 5 days, right?
Okay. Yep.
And
Yep.
I'll say after that time, if I still feel the same way about wanting this item,
Yeah.
then I will go ahead and buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like the buyer's remorse for me comes from the impulse stuff. The impulse stuff where it hits you immediately. You think, oh, this would be great to have. You purchase it, and then 2 or 3 days goes by and you don't feel the same about it. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that was not
Yeah.
that was I just spent money I shouldn't have spent. I mean, I think the biggest example for me um is a car purchase.
Yeah.
Um
Okay.
I
Yeah.
and
That's a pretty big one. Yeah. Yeah.
this goes back to like 2013, purchased a new car. New
Okay. Yeah.
car
Brand new
from it
car.
from a dealership.
Yeah.
And I was infatuated with the idea of having a brand new car
Yeah.
with that was
Sure.
new, had all these features in it and things like that. And I've just, now when I look around at cars, I'm looking at used cars only.
Yeah.
I'm being very careful about, do I need all these bells and whistles and things like
Sure.
that? And,
Yeah. Sure.
I spent a lot of money on that new car,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, we know the theory about they lose so much value
Yeah,
once you
sure,
drive them off the lot.
sure.
Um, and now it's been a great vehicle, and
You still have it?
I still have it.
Okay,
Yeah, and
cool.
so like the purchase ended up working out, but I think hindsight, I would have bought the same vehicle, but maybe like 2 years pre-owned or something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
and sacrificed a few of the features that came in the newer
Okay.
model.
Yeah, yeah. That's true. I think cars are a big one. It's not mentioned in this article, but I think cars are probably a huge one. I think back to that idea of like going to the beach and driving past car lots and they've got the shiny ones, up by the road is something like cute but super impractical, right? Like you can't put all your family in or take gets like 8 miles to the gallon or something like crazy like
Hmm.
that. I think that's the kind of thing where, you can get real excited about it. And again, I don't want this to be a downer. Like I think if you have goals to have a sports car or something like that, we're not telling you can't do that. I think what you want to think through is this going to add enough value if it's going to cause some financial stress for you to overcome that stress, right? Like that's one of the most as I research this topic a bit, it's why do they regret it later? I think the number one thing was the financial stress it caused for like these big ticket items, right? I think it's one thing if you buy a $200 purchase, and you're like, gosh, I really would have been fine with $100 version, of this coat. But, when you're buying a $18,000 Rolex, or a $60,000 RV that mostly sits in your driveway and gets in your way, and, you then have to maintain, I think that's when people get a really like, oh man, I wish I hadn't done that, or what was I thinking as they
Yeah.
titled the article. That's a really good title, I think. That
Who's ready for movie night? Our friends at the Ginther Group Real Estate are proud to sponsor another season of innovation and cinema at Bailey Park in downtown Winston-Salem's Innovation Quarter. The next film is the Super Mario Brothers movie on Friday, June 21st. Bring your chair or blanket to Bailey Park for a great night of cinema from Aperture and beverages and food from a variety of local vendors. Pre-film fun begins at 6:30 p.m. and the movie begins at dark. These magical movie nights are made possible by the Ginther Group, the real estate experts we trust and showcase right here on the Triad Podcast Network. Check their social media for info on each upcoming movie night. And for your real estate needs, call 336-283-8689 or visit theginthergroup.com. Buying, selling, investing, or just learning. Whatever you need, start now. And like me, you can become a Ginther Group client for life. I'll give an example of, and then I'm curious to hear kind of your example of how you would
okay.
answer this question.
Yeah.
But I think one of the purchases where maybe I learned something
Yeah,
in this respect
right.
is I had some money that I had the ability to go and make a purchase on something where, whether it was at the end of the month, like we had some extra funds that we hadn't used and we'd already put the money we needed to into savings. So, it's like $400 or $500
Yeah, sure.
to spend on something. And I thought to myself, ooh, I could buy myself a video game system, or I could buy myself some fancy piece of technology or whatever. And I ended up using it for a top of the vehicle car rack,
Okay.
luggage rack.
Okay. Okay.
So, now when we travel, we have something, and those cost, $400 or $500, the good ones, the big
Okay.
ones.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
we have something to put on the top of our van to fit extra stuff in. So we have a little bit more room when we're traveling
Yeah.
somewhere. So,
But you
that was
probably
some,
don't regret that though. Do you regret that?
no, not at all. That was
Yeah.
one of the smartest purchases
Yeah.
I've ever made.
Yeah.
Um, but if I would have bought like a new iPad or something,
Yeah.
I probably would have regretted that. It's like, What do I need? What do I
Yeah.
need another screen to look at? I have a phone, we have a TV, I have a computer.
Right.
Do I really need a new iPad for something? So, you know,
Yeah, I could
and
see that. Yeah, and like it loses its shininess, right? But what was interesting about that story, I think, something I've heard before is when you're spending money to remove a negative in your life, you generally don't regret that, right? Like, and I
oh,
would
that's a
give
good point. Yeah, that's a good way of thinking of it.
before you had that rack on your van, you're like, oh, how many, we got all these kids in car seats and all this stuff. If we're gonna, how do we get it in the van, right? Like, and so now with your car rack, that just makes things easier for you. And that's something I have heard before. Is if you're spending money because something you think is going to add value to you or like add excitement, add enjoyment, a lot of times that wanes, right? Like depending upon what it is, I think that sort of honeymoon period might be longer. Maybe if it's an RV, that first couple years are exciting, and then as it requires more maintenance, and you've taken all the road trips you want to take, you're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have bought this. If it's a watch, I don't know how long that lasts, probably shorter. But if it's something where like it makes your life easier and you use that repeatedly, or you now don't have to do that thing you hate, I think people feel differently about that.
I that is a great way of thinking about it. If you're going to make that purchase, it remove something that creates some sort of negativity in your life, or
Yeah,
solves a problem, so
right,
is a
right.
solution to something that you're, yeah. So like buying that
Yeah,
top of the vehicle luggage rack was our solution to, we are crammed into this vehicle
yeah,
whenever we take road trips. We've got to do
right.
something about this.
Yeah, yeah. So like I think that's actually like a good example. I have like the least exciting example ever that I can share. I don't know. This will maybe help people
less
get to
exciting
know
less
me
exciting than a luggage
personally. Like you,
less
I guess
exciting than a luggage rack on top of the car.
I think it might be. We'll see. We can let listeners vote or something, and see like which one of us is most sort of boring. But like you, we don't own an RV. We have thought about some sort of other property, that we might retire to and buy, or things like the do you buy a place at the beach or whatever. We have never actually gone through that. We're obviously not impulse people. Like we think about things, which I think is probably good to be thoughtful about that. The one thing would have been like many years ago, and actually it's good. My oldest, she'll be 18 this summer. She just graduated high school. When I was pregnant with her, I had gotten health insurance before that, and not really taking the time. I guess I didn't have like a great agent. Was probably overconfident about what I knew about health insurance at the time, and had put it in place. And then when I got pregnant, realized the maternity coverage was like terrible. It was like little to like non-existent, right? I mean, it was just like horrid. And so you figure that out, like you're already pregnant. And then like, we had to go through this, like, you've got a coverage, you wait, to go through like open enrollment to get on the spouse's coverage, like, so it's like, and then he's able to add, so it's for a time period there, we have like two insurances, one of which is very expensive. The other one, you have, and like, it just really is not that helpful. And it was very like stressful. So like, I feel like that was definitely something, it caused me like a lot of stress when I was pregnant. And something if I had, I think too, I learned the value of like someone good, a good agent, to really say, hey, make sure you understand this is what this coverage means, not this, because these things are so complicated. But it was if you added that up, I'm sure it was thousands of dollars because in premiums and out of pockets that weren't covered and stuff like that. So it's like, I feel like that's like the worst example because you don't even get like the euphoria, right? That I bought the watch or I bought like a designer. This one example in the article is like a designer like cover up for going to the pool. Like I didn't even know that existed, but like if you got like that excitement, and I had like none of that, like excitement, of it. It was just an insurance faux pas. Like I don't know what that says about me as a person, that's my biggest.
I think that means that you are financially responsible.
Right.
I mean, look, this isn't that what somebody would want in their financial advisor is, yeah,
Hopefully. Yeah,
you're not going to get a lot of excitement out of the things I tell you that I purchase because this is what allows me to do this line of work.
that's
Because
right. That's
so
true.
but yes, you
That's
are
true.
every purchase, not every purchase, but I think the big ones that's the thing. So your go-to philosophy is, does it solve a problem? Does it
Right.
remove negativity from your life? And I think mine is wait 3 to 5 days and see if you still have
Yeah,
the same feeling about that item. And if you do,
I
then
agree.
purchase it.
I agree. I think some level of like waiting period makes sense. And I think maybe the bigger the purchase, the longer the waiting period like should be, right? Um, and I would also encourage people to go into it with your eyes open, like understand, like we mentioned with an RV or a home, or I'm not sure, there's probably another example that I'm not thinking of now, a car, I guess, like a normal car. Like, what is the maintenance on this guy, right? Is this going to be something that's going to require a lot of me, both in time and money? Like, we I mean, all of us are kind of pressed for time too, right? Is this something that's going to save me time and add value to my life? Or is this something where every time, you probably know people have their beach place, and every time they go to the beach, they're like working in the yard and they're replacing the vinyl floor in the bathroom or whatever. And you're just like, wow, you're going on vacation like just to do maintenance, basically. Like, so, I mean, I'm just like, gosh, is that really, are you sure? I mean, even if that's an investment, at the end of the day, is that what is, are you happy with that road? Right. And I think part of this too is like we've shared things that we would consider mistakes. I think realistically we all know, especially when we're young and trying to learn how to manage our money, we're going to make mistakes, right? I mean, we've talked about this before with like, it probably would be another good thing to like dive in with like teaching our kids about money. Um, but we're all gonna make mistakes. We're all gonna have regrets. I think it's important to like be reflective on that, right? I mean, my hope would be for people that it's not the kind of mistake that's like really life changing, where you bought a second house, you didn't have an emergency fund and you lost your job. Like that's pretty, those are pretty devastating, a lot of financial stress. And so what I would hope for people is like just to come out of this like being a little bit more thoughtful about that and hopefully avoid some pain for them down the road.
That's great advice. Great advice. Well, really good conversation, Jennifer. And if I think maybe we'll touch on other boring purchases that we've made as a theme for future episodes.
Yeah, we can go
Yeah.
back to my trip to Vegas if we wanted to do that. We talked about yeah, I
Yeah.
guess we could, I'm sure some gambling might be a good topic with now the
Yeah.
sports game being
Gambling. Yep.
live in North Carolina. We were on the cutting edge, of that earlier this year. And now if you're like me, I see ads everywhere. So
Yeah.
sure it's gonna be a hot thing.
Yeah. Don't count on that. Here's one tip. Don't count on that to remove negativity in your life. That's
There you
it.
go. Yeah.
Do
Talk
it for
about an
sport.
impulse.
Do it for sport. Do it for fun. Do it
That's
because
right.
you want to follow sports in a certain way. But if you think it's going to change your life for the better, it's not necessarily great. Well, lack of a better word, not great odds. All right. Well, Jennifer, how can folks get a hold of you to talk about making
Sure.
sure that they are being very thoughtful in the way that
Yeah.
they're saving
Yeah.
for potential big purchases?
Yeah, as you said, we're a local company. So if you're heading to the beach and you're at that car lot and you're going to buy some crazy sports car, call me before you do that. You can call us at 336-701-1600. You can ask for me. I'm Jennifer Johnson or another one of our advisors here, and just maybe run that by somebody before you buy that Rolex too, and just be sure. You can check us out online too. We do have a website. It's all spelled out, Three Magnolias Financial Advisors.com. So maybe there's some resources on there that could keep you from making a purchase you regret, or shoot me an email at Jennifer@3-Magnolias with an S.com. So reach out in whatever method you're most comfortable.
That's great, Jennifer. And maybe I'll submit a blog post for your website on ranking the top luggage racks for cars if people are interested in buying those. Not that I've done extensive research, but maybe enough to help. So
that's right. Summer's coming, people. You got to get those racks up there.
That's right. You don't need a bigger vehicle. Just that's
right.
There are other ways to find storage for the things that you're taking.
You guys
with you.
are one of my favorites right there. So that's your big purchase.
All right, Jennifer. Well, enjoy this month of June, and we'll catch up here later in the summer.
That's right. Happy summer, everybody. Thanks so much.
Securities offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Located at 110 Oakwood Drive, Suite 480, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27103. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors and Cetera Advisor Networks are not affiliated. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. All economic and performance information is historical and not indicative of future results. The market indices discussed are unmanaged. Additional risks are associated with international investing, such as currency fluctuations, political and economic stability, and differences in accounting standards. The views depicted in this material are for information purposes only and not necessarily those of Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC. They should not be considered specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Neither Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, nor any of its representatives may give legal or tax advice.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.